This is We the Sales Engineers Podcast, show 255.
Welcome to We the SEs podcast, the show for sales engineers by sales engineers with your host, Ramsey Majaba.
What's up, SE Nation? Welcome back to another episode. My name is Ramsey Majaba. I am your host, and I like to talk about sales engineering, in case you were wondering. If you're not wondering and you've been here before, thank you for coming back. And I have another great guest for you today by the name of Adam Burgess, and he is the SE manager for SE Academy within an organization. He will talk about that a little bit more. And we do talk about the SE Academy, what it is and what it's for, the benefits of it. So stay tuned for that. But the more interesting part that I found was talking about Adam's career, going into sales engineering from an untraditional background, which seems to be more traditional these days, and then working his way into a leadership role, and then understanding that he has stagnated. And the most important part is that interested me more is figuring out how did he understand, how did he figure out that he had stagnated, which was incredible to hear. So I really enjoyed our chat together. Thank you, Adam, for coming on. So I hope you guys enjoyed as well. Let's just jump into the show. Mr. Burgess, happy to have you on.
Happy to be here. How are you doing today?
I am doing well. So we chatted last time, and I know a little bit about you, but I'd love to know more and love to hear about your journey and how you became where you are today, how you arrived at your destination today, or at least at your stop today.
That's sure. Happy to share that. Like most people that entered the sales engineering profession at some point, it was a unique journey that started as an attempted career as a professional actor, which didn't quite get off the ground. So switched gears, went into tech, and started in a customer success role at a healthcare software company doing electronic health records, which was great. A lot of deep technical problem solving and things like that, but didn't necessarily align closely with the performing aspects that I had hoped to pursue in a career. So an opportunity came up in essentially their sales engineering department, which I transferred into and was an individual contributor there for about 7 years before moving into a leadership role. And after a couple more years, decided to move on to my current role at a company called Smartsheet. And from there, revisited individual contributors, but one of the biggest drivers of passion in my professional time at my previous role had been in mentoring new SEs, teaching them the tools of the trade and training them up, especially having come from a career path with no prior experience. Somebody had to teach me. So passing that forward became something that was really core to my identity. The opportunity came up at Smartsheet to take on a similar role, onboarding and developing new talent for our sales engineering department. And that's how we arrived at where I am today.
Nice. So I have several questions, but let's start off with this one. I've never talked to someone who tried to go into acting. Right? What was that experience like?
The experience of trying to go into acting is very different than the experience of learning how to be a good actor. It's largely there's a lot of brand promotion, brand identity and development, auditioning for different roles, figuring out where your talents align with commercial needs in space. But as an actor, I was always really passionate about doing plays, doing a lot of classical work and things like that, which, part of that is not all that marketable, but part of it is also really great because you get deep analytical skills around language. You learn to acquire subtext at a really high level of proficiency and figure out the potential direction of a conversation, where things are going, and you also learn a lot about how to project yourself a certain way and to share information, share intentionality in a way that I think most people don't do consciously. They do that unconsciously as part of their day-to-day interactions. So being a trained actor was a great way to apply more of an intentional method to the way that you comport, present, and communicate.
Okay. I'm curious if you were to compare and contrast sales engineering, like the business, or let me rephrase that. Is there something you learned from the business of acting that has helped you in your sales engineering career? Not the performance. The performance, everybody knows that we need to perform, but from the business aspect of it.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I think that this is more of a full circle retroactive perspective on things, because I was not a very good or business person as an actor. I was much more of an actor that enjoyed acting, which is probably a big reason why that career didn't go very far. I think knowing what I know now about how networks get developed and how communities are developed and how information and mentorship is shared and developed, a lot of those skills directly transpose themselves to the business of being a working actor, which is you need to help each other out, prop each other up, help develop each other. Some of the people that have been most successful, the folks that I graduated school with, went on to start their own theaters and built a community of fellow graduates and alumni to get them their first role, to help them get that leg up and build exposure, and to mentor them on prior lessons that they had learned and create a community where you were essentially enabling future success in a role that is typically very difficult to break into. People say, "Oh, why would you want to be an actor? It's so difficult. Chances are you're going to end up on the street." And that's largely true if you don't have the right mentorship, if you don't have the right leadership and guidance. It can be very difficult. But over time, we've seen how some of those skills that I think are very helpful in that sales engineering capacity, we've seen play out in the acting world for sure.
For me, like the answer I was imagining you were going to say was, hey, I got to learn how to handle rejection. Right? But you took it in a different path. Like, yes, I mean, sales engineering, we're kind of in our own silo. We may have a team, but we don't generally talk to our team, especially if we're paired with account managers.
Yeah,
and it's so important to actually reach out from within the company and outside of the company and build those networks. I love that that's what you took from that.
From the business side, for sure. From the practical side, I think that you're right. That handling rejection is a big part of it. The collaborative nature of the role, I think there's a lot of parallels there. We've had a lot of success, and this is probably getting ahead of our conversation, training people that have been actors or professional actors or in the performing space to become sales engineers, because there's a lot of soft skills that you develop and a lot of, I would say, commonality between your personal strengths that works very well in both roles. Working as part of a team, figuring out, planning your approach ahead of time, managing personal conflict, figuring out how to manage competing priorities, working with various technical resources that can help fulfill one part of the grander vision and pulling all of those together. People that are actors are accustomed to working as part of an ensemble. You can think of the SE role in much the same way.
It's interesting because, like, when I was paired one-to-one with an account manager for a long time, and we got to the point where we're bouncing off, like we're in front of the customer, we're entertaining them in a way that like we're bouncing off each other, we're talking. And I never thought of it as collaboration. I just thought of it as like two people who know what they're doing. But it was an act, like we were performing, and actors kind of have to do that a lot. You have to give and take with your fellow actors. Not that I'm an actor or know anything about it. It's just what I hear from other, like, people who talk about it. Like Tom Cruise is so generous with his acting, something like that. I don't know what that means, but that's what I'm hearing. Okay, that's very interesting, and hopefully people can take a lot from that. In terms of your transition from acting, you went into something fairly technical. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I would say so. I had dabbled in tech throughout my college years, though. I mean, even though I pursued a major in theater arts, I had done a number of summer internships at the company that I ended up getting a customer success role at. So I'd been exposed to enterprise systems, technical support, customer engagement, interned in sales, interned in operations, interned in marketing a few different capacities.
So, out of curiosity, that might be a personal question, so let me know if you don't want to answer it. But why did you intern at a company that has nothing to do with acting?
It was a family relationship that provided the opportunity, and I think part of me knew deep down inside that you know, commit yourself wholeheartedly to what it is that you are doing, but provide yourself with diversity of opportunities to ensure that, you know, when you are taking risks, you're mitigating those risks and providing yourself with fallback opportunities. So it seemed like a good idea at the time. Turned out to be a good one.
Yeah.
Because it led to what ended up being a very fun career over the last several years.
Okay. So, and you've been doing this for a while now, like sales engineering. I'm on your LinkedIn. So from 2009, it has been a fair amount of time. How have you seen sales engineering change since you first started?
So I can speak to my experience in sales engineering because I think that my awareness of the global sales engineering community really only extends back to, say, the last 4 or 5 years as I've become more engaged with the larger community.
I don't think there was a big community before 4 or 5 years.
Well, maybe that's why. You know, at the beginning of my time as a sales engineer, I think that there wasn't a lot of emphasis on the role. It was largely seen as complementary to the sales position, and most of the emphasis was placed upon learning a script, delivering a demo, and going on to the next site. All the accolades, all the rewards, all of the focus was placed on the sales side. As time went on, we started to think about ways to incentivize the role a little bit more, which we had not been doing much at the time. We also started to think about ways to enable and create more sophistication around systems, around delivery, around quality of life that were really important to retaining good sales engineers and also training better sales engineers over time. Lots of those innovations ended up making a massive difference on the ground in terms of our ability to scale and our ability to do our jobs well. So being in healthcare, the big focus was on creating connections to your clients. Your clients in this case were physicians, they were nurses, they were registrars, they were hospital administrators, they were C-suite people. Much like any role in sales engineering, you're seeing a variety of different titles in your demonstration audiences. But in this case, everybody in that room was always way smarter than you were, guaranteed, hands down. And so there was a big emphasis on not screwing up. And, you know, I think as I've matured in my career and as I've moved into different roles, the emphasis has shifted on not so much creating a sense of reality or verisimilitude or whatnot, but the things that you hear much more across the industry today. A focus on value selling, a focus on creating connections, discovery, and really ensuring that even if you're talking about one solution, you are tailoring every conversation to be as personal as possible to your clients.
So I'm from a networking background. Like I worked in routers and switches, and I can pretty much 100% agree with everything you said. The only difference is a few years ago, the sales engineers in the networking world were more as a post-sales resource for the salesperson to make sure that the customer is happy. So it's less about demos, more about go help that customer out, upgrade their chassis or upgrade their system. But beyond that, like pretty much everything you said kind of fits 100% to what we're doing. And I can say that the best deals I've had as a sales engineer did not come from when the customer asked for a meeting to buy new stuff. It was more from connections and conversations I've had with people in between these deals that are happening that led to like, oh yes, we actually need this, and it's not a tire kicking situation. So it's interesting that even in two completely different worlds, although there are a lot of differences, there's so much similar between like talking to engineers who create the standards for routing, and talking to doctors and physicians. So yeah, okay. And then you transitioned out of that role. You went into a new company. You were a leader within your own company, right? You were a supervisor, pre-sales, according to LinkedIn, and you decided to go back to an IC role.
Yes.
Why would you go like from a leadership role to an IC role?
I felt that I had more to learn. So I had maxed out on what I was learning in that role and in that environment, and was largely in a mentorship role for ICs, right? As a team leader, as a supervisor, I mean, you're helping these new ICs discover themselves in this role, along with managing the day-to-day operations of the team. The problem that I felt at the time was that I wasn't growing anymore, and I needed to change things up. And I suspected that there were things that I did not yet know about this role that needed to be discovered. So I said, you know what, let's take a step back. Let's explore some new opportunities. Let's see what's out there. If there's leadership roles available, terrific, but I'm going to keep an open mind. When the opportunity with my current company came around, it was for a much smaller sales engineering team than one I had been part of, which presented a much more open landscape, a green space, if you will, for bringing my own experiences to the table as somebody who'd been an SE for close to 10 years at that point, while investing in a culture and acquiring new skills along the way and growing along with it. So I was very open to the idea, and it turned out to be a really good one. Immediately, there were several lessons that were apparent. One is that there was a vast amount of best practices and alignment practices and ways that we engage the customer that I had not yet been exposed to. I'd really been in an enterprise sales motion. This was my first time going to a commercial sales motion. So I learned a lot more about the dynamics of that type of sales environment. There were also different demonstration best practices that were being trained up, different ways that they aligned their teams. So it was just fresh. It was just a really great environment to reconcile what I was learning with what I knew, and to develop some informed opinions about how we could innovate going forward.
What does that mean that you didn't feel like you were growing? What were your expectations? A lot of us like think that we're achieved everything that we can achieve, but it doesn't mean that we stop growing. It just means that's the max. How did you know that there's more to learn and decide to make that move?
So some of that came from personal conversations with other SEs that had been colleagues of mine, and that had since moved on from that company. But by staying in touch, maintaining that network, we would have repeated conversations about what they were doing as SEs in these IC roles in other companies. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm standing still. Nothing in my place is changing. And I'm constantly hearing new things from all of these former colleagues of mine. So that was definitely an indicator that there was more out there, more to be exposed to. The other, I think, if we're being perfectly honest, was personal. At a certain point, sometimes you start to feel yourself stagnate in a role, and you can become less engaged in the role. You can find yourself becoming less creative, and you can feel that creeping sense of insularity start to develop. And then it's time for a change. You know that you're not your best self at that point. And when that realization came around, it's like, all right, let's see what else is out there.
Okay. So you've been doing that, and now you're helping other people. You're teaching other people through the academy. Again, let me know if you don't want to answer that question, but what is SE Academy within an organization?
So SE Academy at my organization, this is not a new concept per se in sales engineering organizations out there. There have been academies at a variety of companies out there. But essentially what it is a way for us to introduce the profession of sales engineering to a whole new group of people that otherwise wouldn't necessarily have a clean entry point into tech or into the sales engineering role. There's a lot of different reasons an organization might want to pursue an academy, operational, strategic reasons, and what have you. But at its core, an academy is, instead of onboarding experienced sales engineers, teaching them your product and saying, go, here's your sales team, it takes a longer view and says, here are all the soft skills and hard knowledge that's going to make you a successful sales engineer at this organization. Let's teach you, and then we'll bring you into the fold, and you'll be ready to rock and roll.
I generally think every company should have SE Academy. Most of the companies, I mean, I know you said that a lot of companies have academies, but it's like I can count them probably on one hand, that number. And a lot of them are like Cisco, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pick up VMware potentially. So when I became an SE, I spent 1.5 years to know that I don't know what I'm doing. Because there was no, like, I came in, I had all the hard skills, and they said, Ramsey, go.
Mm-hmm.
The only person I had to learn from was a salesperson who didn't know what he was doing. Right. So I think every company should invest in one way, shape, or form in something like that.
Yeah, and that's extraordinarily challenging for a new SE, right? Because you have no model, you have no mentor other than somebody that's never done that particular role, or they've only done it as a subset of their role, like sales reps. I don't know how it was at your org, whether they ever did their own demos or anything else like that, but I know that's common at many organizations, that account execs will do some demonstrations, but that's not exactly teaching you how to be a successful sales engineer.
Well, I had one mentor who was a sales engineer, but in a different territory. Like he was in Atlanta, I'm in Ottawa, Canada.
Uh-huh.
And we were all in-person meetings. So he couldn't come up every day and watch me what I was doing. He would just reach out, like, hey, how's everything going? And me as a new SE thinking I'm the best thing since sliced bread, it's like, it's perfect. I know what I'm doing. And it wasn't until, I've already told the story several times, but the senior VP of sales came up to Canada and witnessed me doing a presentation. And so we had the VP of sales engineering, so my boss's boss, VP of product management, all come up to Ottawa because we had this one big customer we're trying to break into. But because they were all coming up, we scheduled like 5 other meetings that same day. And by the end of it, I ended up doing the presentation instead of the product manager. Halfway through the presentation, the customer stops me and says, Ramsey, I don't care about anything you're showing me today. I only care about that. It's like, well, I don't have anything ready for that. So I had basically my boss's boss, no, not my boss's boss and his boss and the VP of product management all see me basically fail miserably in front of a customer that likes me. We had a conversation afterwards saying, like, Ramsey, you don't know what you're doing.
If it helps, I think most sales engineers have had that conversation at one point or another.
Yeah, no, I've seen SEs that are much worse than me get better. We all start. There's nothing you do in life that you just know how to do it. You practice, you learn.
Right.
But having the support system of an academy is great. And so I came in from a networking background and into a networking company that I sold stuff. When you're looking for people for your academy, are you looking for new grads? Are you looking for experienced people? What is it what are the criteria?
It's an excellent question. So one thing we've learned over the years, or at least I've learned over the years, is you can teach anybody to be a sales engineer, provided that they have a few core attributes and a desire and to learn to be a sales engineer, and they'll be happy in the role. So those attributes largely lead towards, long-term fit. Are you outgoing and personable? Or if you're not outgoing and personable, can you get on board with the idea of talking to people for 8 hours a day? Because if that sounds like a bad time to you, let's talk about a different role. Maybe something in demo support or something where, like, it's not customer facing. because so much of this role is about giving of yourself and listening actively and communicating and problem solving on the go. And that can be really draining if that's not something that is a big driver of you personally. We're looking for folks that have a demonstrated technical curiosity, right? So much of sales engineering is that engineering piece, right? Problem solving, taking what you hear, translating those needs into a solution, and then communicating that solution back to them. But you have to be able to conceive of the solution, build the solution, or at least a representation of the solution, and craft that presentation. And it's got to land. It's got to be the right problem. Per your previous story, we don't care about this. That doesn't necessarily mean they don't care about it. It just doesn't mean that it's their biggest priority at the moment.
Yes.
So, that's a major skill we're looking for, is like, can you analyze, dissect, and solution, or do you have the capacity to do that? The other things that we're looking for specifically in academy is that you haven't been a sales engineer before. If you've been a sales engineer before, go onboard the regular way. Go find a sales engineering job. That's not what SE Academy is all about. I really wanted to ensure that we were keeping the diversity of influences, of perspectives, of experiences growing and fresh within the organization. And that's something that came down from my VP. Like, that was a major strategic imperative, is how do we bring new folks into the sales engineering world? Because globally, I think we've seen a massive spike in demand for sales engineering, right? People are starting to recognize all over various industries how important it is to the sales process and how important it is to long-term success in terms of your customers. But on the flip side, I don't know where you're finding more sales engineers, because nobody's exactly going to school and majoring in sales engineering. Nobody's going to their kindergarten or first grade teacher with a drawing that says, I want to be an SE when I grow up. That's not exactly high on anybody's list. And in fact, I didn't even know what sales engineering was when, I first became one. And that has been a common refrain across every single person that I've had that initial conversation. See, you're raising your hand too. Like, what is an SE? I don't get it. Even describing it is sometimes difficult because it means different things at different organizations. We still suffer from that identity crisis. But what Academy offers is a way to say, hey, you're looking for a career change. You're looking for something new. You're looking to jumpstart your career. You're looking to rejoin the workforce. You're looking to change industries altogether. You've always wanted to break into tech, but there's been some type of ceiling that you keep running up against, that experience ceiling, what have you. Here's a way to break through. Here's a way to make that change. As long as you're willing to learn, commit, get creative, dig in, you'll be successful. Like any sales engineer, just learning along the way.
So, two things. The first job that I took that was a sales engineering job was actually called systems engineering. In my mind, I was going to be an architect. Like, oh, I'm going to create systems. And then I applied to the job, found out it's a sales engineering, and got the job. So, yeah, there's a million titles. But one thing I want to add, like you mentioned, if you don't want to do demos, or you want to talk to customers 8 hours a week, I want to say that there are companies that I don't have to do that as a sales engineer in my current company.
Okay.
Because it's a lot of field engineering. So you may not be if you want to talk to people 8 hours a day, then maybe what I do is not good for you, but Smartsheets is, and vice versa. Right. So if you're not in a good SE one company, doesn't mean you won't be a good SE for another, or you'll hate it somewhere else.
Right. That's good to know. So if I ever get tired of talking to people, I know I need to go someplace where I get
yeah. I find that like a lot of field sales engineers, those who have to go visit customers, they don't visit as many customers as people who are in the room, like just doing one call after another. So commercial, it's more talking to people 8 hours a day. Enterprise is less, from what I found. I don't know, you've done both, so you tell me.
Yeah, I would say commercial is higher volume than an enterprise motion. I used to do probably 3 sites a week, 2 to 3 sites a week, with potentially 1 to 4 demos per site, and that was in the enterprise space. Going to commercial, it would be more 2 to 3 demos a day. with, downtime for solutioning,
Right.
product
Yeah.
training, personal enrichment, what have you.
Yeah. So I guess the tip is, if you're interviewing for a job, make sure you know what the role looks like. Because you mentioned that every job, every sales engineering job, although it's the same title, could be completely different.
Absolutely. Yeah. And finding the right alignment is so important, because there's a lot of opportunities out there, and probably one for you if you thought, well, sales engineering could never be for me. I mean, case in point, this conversation just proves that there's a whole myriad of types of
Different
opportunities
flavors.
out there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, like, SEs within my company who are specialists do a lot more calls than I do, because I have a certain set of customers. Like, my job is to make sure it sounds more like customer success than sales engineering, but it's both. It's a combination of both. Well, you mentioned that they have to be personable. They have to be technically curious. And how do you find out if you're interviewing someone? How can you tell?
That's an excellent question, and one that I think we'll probably get better at it as the years go by. Our academy has been up and running for, at this point, we're going to be hiring our third cohort this year. So, there's been some opportunity for us to refine our perspective on identifying people that are going to be great. That I'm sure will change, but I digress. There's a few things that go into it, I think. One is SEs know SEs. So there's a little bit of a gut feeling and assessment that goes along with this. And you always have to watch out for things like unconscious bias and things like that. But as long as you're framing the conversation with the other members of the panel, so to speak, that no experience required. Keep an open mind. Think about whether they would enjoy themselves in the role, whether they're capable of being successful at learning the skills that they need. That as long as that's the frame in which you're making these evaluations, most people that we've talked to would make great sales engineers at some point. So I've actually been kind of surprised at how many people out there have been looking for opportunities as SEs that would be well suited to it. It's really been kind of great. It's made the hiring process a lot easier. It's made it harder in some cases, because you have to make some tough choices between people that you're absolutely like, oh man, I wish I could take you all. But there's a few things. So having the conversation, doing a demonstration, even if it's not of my software, I mean, do a demo of whatever and generally you'll get a sense of how much research people had put into the role, and whether they have done the work of trying to problem solve what a demo is. Because most people come to the table not having an awareness of what SEs actually do in the day-to-day, but good SEs know how to find the answer, right? Not every SE is going to know every answer all the time. You couldn't possibly, but you also, very good research skills. So the best candidates are the ones that went out, built a network, Googled it, what have you, found the answers that they were looking for, and came with something that was a close approximation with very little guidance. That shows me problem solving acumen, initiative. And if you enjoyed the demo process and you were outgoing and really good with people, Q&A, etc., then that's usually a good indicator that you'll be successful.
So when you said no experience, does it mean no SE experience, or no experience, like straight out of university?
Yes.
Okay.
We have hired people straight out of university for academy. We have taken people that have had retail sales roles. We've taken people that have had experience in various professional fields. For example, nurses, teachers, people that have limited sales experience, what have you. There's been a wide variety of experiences.
I'm assuming actors are also on the list.
We've done actors too. Yep.
Okay. All right. And so by the end of it, are they like SEs, or are they rookies? Like, is it first year of MBA, for example, or is it NCAA?
I like the analogy there. being an SE is a journey, right? When they graduate academy, the hope and I think what we've seen play out is that they're equipped to do the job and to be nimble enough to operate independently with some mentorship and guidance. So they know the product really well, they know the soft skills well enough, and they just need more experience. So, most of what you learn as an SE comes from the customer,
Yeah.
not from whoever trains you. So while Academy is amazing and it's great, and it's definitely what I think is a necessary component for helping people acquire the skills that they need to embrace the career, you still got to go out there. You still got to work with the customers. So I would liken it to being like a rookie season or something like that, where you're going to make your mistakes, you're going to take your lumps, but you're going to improve, and you're probably going to be in a position where you can improve faster than you otherwise would because of the foundation that you got.
Speaking of like theory versus like actual learning from the customer, we learn that if you want to do a POC, you don't go into it without a POC plan, without approvals, without any of that. I'm assuming it's a similar at Smartsheets.
Yeah.
But we've had one customer who's been a customer forever, and he keeps buying more stuff, and he wanted to try the newest product. And I came to him and said, all right, let's have a POC plan. Let's do this and that. And he's like, why are you making it hard? Just give me the product, let me live, and leave me alone. Like, boss, yes, do that. Cool. So yeah, theory versus reality. Awesome. Adam, we're about to jump into the not so fire round, but before we get there, is there a question that I should have asked you but I didn't?
Oh, that's a good question. I wasn't expecting that question. I would say one question you haven't asked is what are some of the major benefits that we've seen from an academy that we haven't seen from all the other approaches that we've tried?
Well, I've took it for granted, but yeah, please answer that question. That's a very good question. Thank you.
We've talked a lot about some of those advantages as we've gone through, but when we think about how SEs come into the space, a lot of SEs have come from technical roles, to come from, a software engineering or technical engineering or some type of engineering background, which is wonderful. That leads to highly competent SEs that can solution the heck out of whatever they find. What that does, though, is it leads to a monoculture. It leads to essentially a limited set of perspectives on the ways that you can come to the table with customers, on the ways that you can solution, on a way to problem solve. And while I think that there's probably room for the engineering mindset as a primary way of doing things like solutioning and back-end engineering, there is room for other perspectives there. Sales engineering has the word sales in it, right? You gotta be able to innovate as you come to the table with customers. So, one of the real benefits of having an academy program is you are suddenly broadening the level of perspectives or the number of perspectives that you are bringing within to your organization. Diversification provides opportunities for cultural value adds, for creativity, for insights from other industries that aren't necessarily being represented here. So that's one benefit, really, that diversification aspect. Other things that this academy has enabled us to do is really personalize the approach. I think that people give back into a profession what they get. And if you come into a space and it's very much, hey, I'm going to throw you in there, figure it out, sink or swim, that might be the culture that you propagate. Or that might be your perspective on what you should be doing going forward throughout. Having an academy allows us to develop a culture of support and innovation and skill building in a cohort model that then pays dividends for decades to come. If you're coming into a new career with a certain perspective of co-teaching, co-learning, and supporting one another through problem solving, you're going to carry that forward. And I think that's enormously powerful. It's going to enable if more academies start crop up, for example, enable a continuation of what I've seen in the last few years in the SE space and what you're doing right now with this podcast, which is how do I help other SEs? How do I give back to this community? The best SEs, the phrase goes, they can, great SEs steal, right? I take a good solution and I put it in my demo and boom, problem solved. Great SEs also create those solutions and offer them up. They also give back in whatever way they can. And I think that's part of the mindset that's made the team that I'm on really successful, and part of the mindset that I see other successful organizations lay out. By the same token, there's kind of an organizational advantage. You then have the opportunity to shape the experiences of these individuals, which one, I think it's great because they're more likely to stay in the long term, but also you get to essentially build an SE crafted towards your product stack, towards your experiences, towards your best practices, and really enable them to be successful in the motions that you run. I think the last point I want to make about some of those benefits is really what it offers to the organization at large, whether it's sales engineering or otherwise. The way that an academy comes together, I don't think comes from one person. It comes from the community of SEs, from the community within the organization. That leads to leadership and mentorship opportunities for growth. I don't know how universal this is, but I've listened to your podcast a little bit and some of the other industry blogs, and there's always the question of where do you go from here? You're an SE now. Do I go into sales? Do I optimize as an individual contributor? What do I do if there's no leadership opportunities? Being able to have an academy within your organization gives you just this great opportunity to innovate, to develop content, to teach what you know, to mentor people, and it's just been great for continuing the cultural growth of the team overall.
So, like, for me, if someone asks me, like, why do you want to build a SE academy within your organization? My thought is, why wouldn't you? Right? And so I took it for granted. Like, yeah, we need to help SEs get better as SEs. But I love that you've listed out like the actual residual benefits, not just like we have better SEs, but like as a whole. It's a holistic view. So I like that. All right. So thank you for that. I appreciate you asking me that question and then answering it. So last question, we're going to jump into the not so fire round. These are the same 4 questions I ask almost every guest, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about it.
Okay, sure.
Starting with question number 1 is, what do you love about sales engineering?
I love everything. The short answer is I love being able to help people. One of the things that's made this career so rewarding is seeing the outcomes of your customers and seeing how it's made a difference in their lives. So, whether that's in my prior role in the healthcare space or in my current role at Smartsheet, revisiting those customers and seeing where they went with it, and then seeing the follow-up opportunity that grows off of that, and then building innovation and building success personally, professionally, organizationally is really rewarding for me. And I've always enjoyed that part of it, of kind of taking something that's a problem, fixing it, and changing perspectives and changing minds, and opening up new creative insights that weren't there before you got on the phone with them. That's really cool that you have enough power to influence the direction of an organization or a group of people that way. That's also been extended, I think, to this academy role too, right? And you see the outcomes of people that go through it, the growth that their careers take, and that's also extremely rewarding. It's just, instead of through the lens of the customer base, it's through the lens of young aspiring SEs.
I'm just writing down you're kind of getting the juices running, so I'm taking down notes before I forget them. All right. The second question is, what do you think is your superpower? What makes you such a good SE or an SE leader?
I think that my superpower is be able to see the potential in people or in situations. Looking at the status quo, saying, what can we learn from this and how can we grow from this? And then, helping take somebody there. So whether that's communicating through a demo and slowly setting those breadcrumbs, value point by value point by value point to solution, or through somebody's development as an SE and saying, all right, let's build some foundational skills around discovery. You'll see where this leads, and having somebody take that journey with you. I think that's probably the best thing that I'm able to do in this role.
Are you a hockey fan by any chance?
Sort of. I loosely follow the
I'm not.
NHL.
I'm not. So I'm Lebanese. I came to Canada and I never got into it. But Wayne Gretzky, he's talked about, like, he had this saying, like, know where the pass is going and like be there. And that what you just said for some reason made me think of that. Like, you can see where the person can end up, and then you help them get there, right? So I don't know. I like that. I like sports analogy. So
I'm gonna have to get that poster on my wall now.
Good. There you go. Your superpower is you know where the puck is going, I guess. All right. So question number 3 is, what resource would you recommend for aspiring SEs or SEs in general to become better at their job?
Your podcast, of course.
Appreciate that. You just basically told everyone who's listening to listen to my podcast, but I'll take it.
See, that's what we call a low value statement there, because it didn't add anything.
No, I'll snip this part out and I'll just put it everywhere. Like, so don't worry, I'll use it.
So there's lots of professional networks that have grown over the last several years that offer opportunities for networking, for community, for skill building, for job opportunities, for diversification of insights, panels, what have you. Pre-Sales Collective is a big one. North American Academy of Sales Engineering is another big one that comes to mind. Tap into those networks. Get on LinkedIn and start just messaging people. People usually are willing to pick up the ball if you explain what your intention is and what you're looking for. And if they're well aligned to that, they'll help you out. There's also some skill-based organizations out there that are working towards up-leveling and enabling new or aspiring SEs. Pre-Sales Academy is one that has gotten a lot of traction over the last few years. That's had a lot of success with helping people pick up some of those basic soft skills and prepare themselves for an SE role going forward. I'd say, yeah, get on any of those communities and start going.
Nice. All right, the last question of the not so fire round is there a habit you're working on today to improve in your personal or professional life?
Is there a habit I'm working on?
Yes.
I am working right now on, I think, being very intentional about the decisions that I want to make, and making sure, more importantly, enabling that vision to see itself through to fruition without overcomplicating the process. I have a tendency to get these grand visions of things that I want to do, but focusing on the achievable and the direct and the high value can sometimes be a challenge. So what I need to do is be a better customer to myself is what I'm trying to work on.
That's funny, because I always come up with grand ideas as well, and I tell my wife, and she just looks at me funny. She doesn't even answer me anymore. She just walks away. All right. So, Adam, if people want to reach out and connect with you, if people want to build their own Pre-Sales Academy and they want to learn from you, where can they do that?
Easiest way to reach out to me is on LinkedIn. Got a pretty good presence there. And otherwise, if you're looking to join the SE Academy cohort at Smartsheet, we have a posting up right now for the next cohort. So it's nice. Smartsheet.com/careers. You'll be able to find the listing there. But yeah, LinkedIn is definitely the easiest way to find me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Adam, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you. I appreciate the time and appreciate the interest in the topic, and let me know if there's anything I can help with in the future. It was great talking to you.
Thank you. And that brings us to the end of the show. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. What takeaways did you get today? I mean, we talked about a lot of different things, a lot of interesting things, in my opinion, about his career specifically, and also about just being like having, if you're an SE manager, do you want an academy for your organization? Or if you're looking to become an SE, would the academy be the route you would take? It's, yeah, I mean, that these are the questions that come to mind. So let me know. What do you think? Is this something that you want to do? So I'll just leave you to ponder that question, and I will sign off for now. This has been Ramsey, and I'm signing off.